Welcome back, Fright Night friends, to episode 13 of season 2, where we're calling back to episode 13 of season 1, and we're breaking down Paranormal Activity 3. Lots to talk about. We're going to talk about tension versus jump scares in this movie, how it relates to the first one. Was it better? Was it worse? How was it different? And then we're going to go ahead and give an overall take of what we thought about the movies this season.
So let's get into it. This is Scary Movie Fright Night,
a podcast about two guys who just watch scary movies. I'm Chris, and I love scary movies.
And I'm Sam, and I hate scary movies. My body just shook. Give me the heebie-jeebies. No, don't. All you have to do is stay inside in your bed, and then you won't get murdered. Oh. Okay. And now you have that recorded.
So here we are, episode 13, season 2, circling it back to episode 13 from season 1, where we watched Paranormal Activity, the first one, and it was the highest rated movie on the Scary Sam Scary Scale.
That's right.
To date, it was an 11. So we opted to go watch Paranormal Activity 3 because the internet said it was scarier than 2, and really we were just, we were trying to see how it would compare to the first, and I wanted to bring something as good, or at least try to. So,
it was a nice poetic circle there that we ended last season, episode 13, lucky number 13,
yep.
Paranormal Activity 1, and then now Paranormal Activity 3.
Well, and both times were by chance. Do you remember,
Yep.
Last season you had that box behind you, and it was like, oh, all the movies you didn't pick.
Yeah.
And we had just gotten The Conjuring, and that was a 10 out of 10. And then a couple movies later, you picked Paranormal Activity, and that's the 11.
Broke the scale.
And then this time I purposely went found footage, but you could have very easily picked The Blair Witch or whatever that other movie was that neither of us had seen. But here we are, circling it full circle like a triangle, where Paranormal Activity is at the top of the circle triangle.
Like the symbol in the movie.
That's where I was going. I was not just speaking random stuff. I was literally
that was
talking about the symbol. Yeah, well, 100%. Like everything I say.
Are you part of this coven of witches? Yeah.
Oh, well, we'll find out. Come over this weekend. I want to show you something.
Deal.
Yeah, deal. Okay. Well, should we talk about what the movie was about, I guess?
Well, let me tell you who was in this movie. Paranormal Activity 3 came out in 2011, 1 year after Paranormal Activity 2, which came a year after Paranormal Activity 1. It was directed by Henry Joost and Ariel Schulman. It was written by Christopher Landon and Oren Peli, starring Chloe Segenery, Jessica Tyler Brown, and Christopher Nicholas Smith. It earned just a 5.1 out of 10 on IMDb and a 66% on Rotten Tomatoes with a 51% audience score. I'm curious if we will end up agreeing with those scores or not. But there wasn't a very complex plot, but why don't you walk us through it, Chris? What happened in Paranormal Activity 3?
Well, let me remind you, Sam. So, in the first one, there was a couple. She was like, hey, when I was a kid, there were some ghosts and stuff. And then her douchey boyfriend was like, oh, let's videotape it. But in this movie acts as a prequel to that. So it starts out, and it's March of 2005. And so we see pre-Paranormal Activity Katie, who we got to know intimately well in the first movie, delivering a box of old videotapes to her pregnant sister, Christy, and her husband, holding footage of her and her sister and their mother, Julie, and their boyfriend, Dennis, from when they were children. A year later, Christy and Daniel's house gets ransacked, and the tapes are missing. And I think, because I haven't seen the second one, but I think it's after this that the second movie picks up. I think after their house is ransacked, that's where Paranormal Activity picks up.
Got it.
And because this is all before, what happens to Katie and Mika, who was a douche, and he really egged on that demon.
He did that whole thing with the Ouija board where she was like, no. I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah, let's just do this thing. And then he was like, come and get me. What do you got? Yeah. Anyway, I'm not gonna get angry again. I got real passionate about it. If you didn't hear it, go back and listen. I got a little angry at Mika because he wasn't being very nice. Anyway, so surprise, surprise, the rest of the movie is going to be spent diving into the videos of Katie and Christy as a child. So now it's 1988. A young Katie and Christy are living with their mother, Julie, and her boyfriend, Dennis. Their father's gone, TBD. We don't know. Don't care. He's out of their hair. Dennis notices that Christy has an imaginary friend named Toby, and since he arrived, some strange things start happening at the house. As a callback to the original, which Sam, I'm sure you caught it, one of the first things that happens, he's like, want to make a sex tape? And I'm like, oh, well, that's... And like every time you got the dude with the camera, he's like, wanna
make a sex tape? Yeah, of course.
But unlike the first one, their mother, Julie, says, yeah, I guess so. But then an earthquake happens. The sex tape doesn't happen. So yet again, no sex tape in this movie. During the earthquake, the camera catches an invisible figure, and Dennis, who just happens to own a wedding event filming business and happens to own a ton of cameras, sees this in the video and is like, hey, let's put cameras all over the house. Maybe a little harder to believe, but hey, sometimes you just own a lot of cameras when there's a ghost in the house.
I wonder how many tapes did he have and how did he keep all of these cameras charged? And like this is a big operation.
Yeah. So like maybe they were plugged into the wall, but he was saying they had to change the tape every 6 hours. So if it's going 24 hours, that's 4 tapes per camera, and there was at least 3 cameras, so that's 12 tapes a day. And he didn't have steady income, so like, I mean, the mom did say, "Is he using your credit card?" And Christy was like, "I'm sorry." Julie was like, "Maybe." Anyway. So they set up cameras all over the house, and they start showing images during the evening, just very similar to the first one. And as they progress, jumps from night 1 to night 5, little things start happening, sounds happening, doors moving. Little girl Christy, which was surprising, having not seen the second one. I don't know what you thought, Sam, but I expected it to be little Katie that was like in tune with the ghosts, but it was her sister.
Oh, right.
And so I was kind of like, oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, I haven't seen part 2 and seen Christy's connection, but she's up running around the hallways, talking to Toby, standard ghostly stuff. At one point, Dennis and Julie hire a babysitter to watch the kids. She becomes desperate to leave due to some terrifying incidents, just like no big deal, a ghost being right behind her and then vanishing, and there's a sheet on the floor. And then she goes to look in the closet and this big gust of wind hits her face. We don't actually see what happens. She gets freaked out and leaves, doesn't even tell anyone she's out.
Yeah, I love how she's like, I'm not even going to let you know that there's like demons in this house where I'm babysitting these children for you. I'm just,
she's
like, peace out. I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, why did the ghost just blow in her face? Did they like burp or something? I don't really.
He went.
Yeah. And she was like, oh my God. Okay. There's a gust of wind in here. I got to leave. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So then Dennis, of course, like sees this on camera when he's watching back all these hours every single day of 3 cameras, 12 million tapes. Anyway, the man knows how to arrange his time well, apparently. So he starts researching demons and covens and stuff and discovers a strange symbol inside the closet in the girls' room where Toby lives and finds the same symbol in his book about demonology. Shortly after, Christy becomes super ill. Julie and Dennis have to take her to the hospital. So Dennis's friend Randy comes over, who's been helping him, with camera setup this whole time. And then they think that in all this, that it's a great idea to run in the bathroom and play Bloody Mary. And she's like, come on, I want to play Bloody Mary. And and Randy's like, okay, it's a good idea.
I mean, you can't tell like a 6-year-old that you're too scared to play Bloody Mary.
No, but you can like offer her some ice cream instead. Like, how about I just make you 5 scoops of ice cream?
Yeah, that's fair.
Anyway, so this is where I'm going to break and say, Sam, if you had to pick between the two, you go in a bathroom with the lights off, and you either get to do Bloody Mary or you get to do Candyman.
Oh,
which
God.
one? Guy with a hook or Bloody Mary the Unknown? Like one or the other. Do you have one?
I mean, okay. It feels like Bloody Mary's probably indiscriminate. Like, I'm just going to show up and do whatever violence to anyone. Yeah. But Candyman had a bit of like a social justice thing going on where there were victims, and then there was people that he didn't necessarily like. Do you remember the girl at the end? She like invoked Candyman, but he didn't. He didn't harm her. He harmed,
Yeah, but when people were in the bathroom doing it, they all died.
Yeah, but they were also died. Those kids were bullies, right? They were like ostracizing the other kid and like
Oh,
Mm,
okay. So you're gonna
I
put
think
your
I'd have a
faith in that you're not getting the hook?
in my yeah. I'm nice to people.
Okay. So
I think I have a
okay,
better
so
shot with Candyman.
you're okay. You're gonna say Candyman, you're gonna get hooked up. And then okay, moving back to the story. Uh so they opted for Bloody Mary, not Candyman. And then even though Bloody Mary doesn't show up, a black figure rushes around. Randy gets slashed on his torso. It's running around outside the bathroom, and all the furniture that's in the kids' room gets pulled across the room, obviously scaring the living crap out of both Randy and young Katie. So Julie and Dennis return home, and Dennis lets Julie know that the symbol from the closet actually belongs to a witch's coven that brainwashed the girls of childbearing age into having sons, then forcing them to give up their sons and forget everything afterward. But Julie basically thinks he's lost his mind. She won't look at the footage. He's like, but look, I have all this footage. Oh, by the way, he hasn't shown her any of the ghostly stuff up to this point because he's like, no, because she'll make me stop. Somehow, magically, all the furniture that got moved in the kids' room, it gets put back together. Maybe Randy cleaned up after himself. What a nice guy. Meanwhile, as Julie is saying, why are you lying about the ghost in my house? Katie gets held up by her ponytail. And Christy says, fine, I'll tell my mom to take me to grandma's. She tries to tell her mom to go to grandma's. And then everything. And then this was actually pretty impressive. Julie walks out of the room. She walks back in, and there's nothing in her kitchen. And then it all just slams down from the ceiling. I actually rewound it to watch it because I was like, how high are those ceilings? They must have been vaulted.
Did you notice when the camera swung back around that everything was gone?
I noticed that it looked clean. Like
Mm,
I didn't necessarily, I was like, why does it look like there's nothing there? But I didn't quite get it.
yeah, because a
And then I
moment
rewatched it.
before, trust me, I was like, their house is so cluttered. They got shit everywhere.
Yeah. Oh,
So when
yeah.
it
Yep.
panned back, because we had seen the kitchen like a moment before, like 10 seconds earlier, and everything was still there. And when it panned back and everything was gone out of the kitchen, I immediately noticed.
Super cluttered to super neat. Honestly, I'll take that cleaning service as long as the shit just stays up on the ceiling.
Yeah.
So finally, Julie says, fine, let's go to grandma's. Get your stuff. Well, that was hard. So they pile in the car. They drive to grandma's. It's 1 a.m. Julie and Dennis get awoken by loud disturbances. Then Julie's like, oh, let me go check what's going on. She never comes back. So Dennis is like, oh, I guess I got to go look for her by myself. Let's put the camera on my shoulder. And I will tell you, it goes full first person Resident Evil style horror video game going through a creepy house. I felt like I was playing a video game. That's what it felt like to me. Walking through the house first person. And that house was creepy.
Yeah,
He
he did a pretty
finds,
good job, like clearing the rooms, like like coming
yeah,
around the corners. Yeah.
yep. I wanted to pick up a controller, but there was none available. So he finds all sorts of occult imagery on the walls, surprise, including the symbol from the girls' room. Oh no, grandma's a witch. And then they discover several women, including Lois, all dressed in black. So he runs away, which is funny because it's like a bunch of women in the room. And he's like, oh no, women. And then he runs away and like sees them coming after him. He goes back to the house. The women are in pursuit. He finds Julie. Okay, so now we get back to creeper style. He looks up the stairs, sees Julie, walks up the stairs. Turns out her ass is floating there. She gets flung at him. He flies down the stairs, somehow doesn't get his neck broken, gets back up, finds Christy. They go into a closet, but then they go into the kitchen. Dennis sees out the window all the women are encircling around a bonfire. He thinks it's s'mores, but he doesn't go have any because he's not hungry. So then
This
Dennis
isn't
looks
the
back.
end of the menu.
It's not. Oh, I don't know. I get it all mixed up. There's a lot of witches and movies and things. Anyway,
S'mores and yeah.
exactly. So Dennis looks over and sees little tiny Katie crying near where the mom's body is. So he goes over there. She's not responding. He taps her on the shoulder, and same old memorable demon face Katie turns around and goes roar. And he flies backwards. Grandma Lois walks in, grabs Katie's hand. Then the invisible entity that we've known as Toby kills Dennis by contorting his body and breaking it the wrong way in a what I hoped would be a little bit more scary death. And then Lois beckons to Christy and Katie, saying, it's time to get ready. And they walk up the stairs, and Christy says, come on, Toby. And growling sounds are heard up the stairs until the camera cuts out and the film ends. The end.
What do you think would have happened if the main guy, when he discovered the witches in the
Yeah.
house, had been like, "Hey, do you want to make a sex tape?"
They might have
They
done
might
it.
have been into
They
it.
might have
Yeah,
been
I
into
think
it.
they probably would have
Yeah.
been like,
They probably would have.
"Sure."
Yeah.
We're a bunch of witches. We don't get asked that very
Why
often.
not? Now, they weren't naked like the witches at the end of The Witch, so they must have
Right.
not been the same coven, different coven.
Yeah.
Also, there's a million different things to break down. I'm going to jump right into this idea that I did find one note on Reddit where someone was like, well, actually, so this Reddit user, I didn't even keep the whole thing because he was a very angry Reddit user. He was like, Hereditary was a garbage movie. Paranormal Activity is an amazing movie. Hereditary was an exact copy of Paranormal Activity 3.
Okay.
And the point was that there was a grandmother who was part of an occult, who was using the granddaughters or grandchildren to resurrect some sort of a demon. The mom dies. And that was kind of like the only thing that this person had. Like,
there was a few other things I noticed. Okay, mainly like because we just talked about Hereditary. So this is all like fresh on the mind.
Yeah.
There was the thing about the symbols. No, not the clicking.
Okay.
No, but do you remember in Hereditary, we see the symbol from their cult like multiple times?
Yeah.
It was on the light pole. We saw it like in the book, whatever.
Okay.
So there was a symbol. And
there was a symbol.
Yeah. But I mean, well, in this movie, there was a symbol, although I kind of thought, I was like, it kind of just looks like the Deathly Hallows symbol from Harry Potter, which is like not that complex of a symbol. Like a lot of things could have a circle and a triangle, right?
That's true. You're right. Yeah.
At least in Hereditary, they were like, let's make it like fancy so it's not just some like random thing that could be drawn on. Yeah. But then the other connection was, and I didn't pick up on this in the movie, but I was reading afterwards that the demon or maybe this was in Paranormal Activity 2, and I haven't seen that. The demon wanted their first male heir. Oh. So apparently a deal had been made at some point that like in exchange for like wealth and power, the witch would eventually have to give the first male child. And she had 2 daughters, and then Julie in this movie, she had 2 daughters. So I guess it's not until later in Paranormal Activity 2 where maybe that's Paranormal Activity
2. Well, yeah, because remember, so at the beginning, Katie drops off the tapes and Christy is pregnant with a son.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably that's probably it.
So it's a little different, but I did think it was interesting that in Hereditary, the whole thing was that like the demon king of hell wants to inhabit the male host, and in this movie, the demon wants the firstborn son. Doesn't care about the daughter.
Yeah, well, but honestly, it's like the life we live every day. Like the demon's just impatient. You got to wait for the mail to be delivered.
Yeah,
just like in your mailbox.
Just like in your. That was pretty good delivery.
That's okay. It was good, except for I should have said, I should have like been like, oh, it's like when you're waiting for a package, you can't just go ripping apart stuff. You got to wait for the mail to get delivered. No, that still didn't really work.
Yeah, that's okay.
Well, moving on. We'll cut that out. No, we won't. But anyway, so that was the long retelling. There was a lot that happened, but nothing revolutionary. I got some notes. I got some thoughts. What was your thought? What was like your big? What did you think about this movie compared to the first or whatever?
I definitely it brought me back to Paranormal Activity 1, where I was like, okay, like this, they're not using scary music. They're not using a ton of sound effects. I mean, they do use some, like there's sound in the house, but it's all very practical sound effects.
Sure. Yeah. Like the oscillating, like stand.
Yeah. Or like you just might hear like low murmurs or things bumping in the house. So there was nothing particularly like fantastical about it. Found footage, like you're just watching someone's random VHS. I definitely experienced like tension and like when there's quiet moments.
Yeah,
I would like look around the room trying to figure out like what is going to jump out of where, what's about to happen. Can I spot it? Can I anticipate it? A lot of times it was just nothing. It's just you're just seeing the room in the middle of the night, but I'd be looking around like, is it behind the door? Is it in the fish tank? Like, and that like nervous energy of like constantly shifting around is
stress.
Like the stress. I was like, what is going to jump out at any moment? And that created like, I think I had a physical reaction while watching this movie of just like Paranormal Activity 1 of just being in constant like anticipation of
Yeah.
whatever was about to happen.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's funny because we've talked about the tension and constant tension, but this one it felt stress because you just don't know. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think that, and that was one of the things that I thought was most interesting was adding the oscillating camera. Right? That's how something that takes it
Yeah.
another level, because as soon as it pans away, you're like, what's happening on the frame? What's
What's
happening
over
in the other
there?
frame? What's
Yeah.
happening on the other
Yeah.
side? And then it pans back and you're like, oh shit, nothing's happening. Or when it
Right.
panned back and the ghost figure was standing there with the sheet in the background, I didn't even see it at first. So I'm
Oh,
like, it pans
really?
back. Like, yeah, because it was
Oh,
what,
I was searching the screens constantly. Like, what is it? What is
but
about to
somehow,
happen?
yeah, but somehow in
What
that
is lurking in
moment
the corner?
with the babysitter, when it was on the left side before it was right behind
Yeah.
her, somehow I just didn't see it. And then I did see it and I was like, oh shit, that's been there the whole time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's actually really funny. One of the first things I wrote down going into this movie, because, I'm a scary movie buff. And I feel like this could be a meme, and maybe we should recreate this meme and post it on our Instagram. But like, I wrote, quote, yeah, okay, here we go again. ... proceeds to get scared as soon as it gets quiet. Because that's how I felt. I kind of like was just like, okay, we've seen this before. And then 2 seconds later, I was like,
That's
okay,
what's so
what's it?
interesting to me. It's like, like we know there wasn't a particularly different like beast. There was nothing like new about the demon or the ghost. It's just all like it's a really simple formula. They're like, all you need to know is that there's some crazy shit going on, and we're just gonna make you like sit and wait for it. And like have no idea what's going to happen when. There was, like you said, it was like a gust of wind. It wasn't that like fantastical. It was
Yeah.
nothing gory. And I think too, because when you're sitting at home in the dark,
Yep.
and like right now it's like beautiful weather outside, we have the windows open, we have wind coming through the house, we have house plants all over the place. Those things are like moving. There's like things in the shadows, like gets dark at night and you're looking outside and wondering like, what is that? Is that there's something by that tree? Was that what's going on over there? Your
Yeah.
mind starts like inventing things and like playing trick. That's the thing about this movie is it's like for me, I have a hard time if there's something where you like really have to suspend disbelief.
Right. Right.
But this is just like shadows and noises in the house, which
Yeah.
happen.
Sure. Yeah. But now you know that it's because a demon is coming to growl at you
No,
and turn you inside out. Blech.
no,
Yeah. But
no.
after he got broken, then he can walk like, the girl from The Exorcist.
Yeah, do like the
Super
upside
mobile.
down handstand
Upside
walk.
down,
Yeah,
like
I think it
like
was
you
really
tried to
hard to
do.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite part of the movie, not favorite part, but I got really excited, was the Teddy Ruxpin. Did you ever have a Teddy Ruxpin?
Yes. Yeah, I couldn't have
Yeah.
told you that's what it was called, but I immediately was like,
Yeah.
we had one of those.
Well, you're about 20 years younger than me. Back in my day,
No.
so the film takes place in 1988. I was 6 years old. Like, I had a Teddy Ruxpin. That might have been my Teddy Ruxpin. Anyway, I loved a good old Teddy Ruxpin back in the day. I wish I
Yeah.
still had one. Although now I would
Those
just think
old
it was
toys are kind
creepy.
of creepy. Yeah.
They are.
Yes.
Like, the mouth moves. Like, you put the
Yeah.
cassette tape in the back, then you
Don't
realize
like
there's no
that.
batteries in it and it's talking to you. Yep.
Not cool.
Yeah, well, never again. Never again. I also noted, because we're just going to jump around and talk about random ass parts of this movie. Did
Yeah.
you notice they used their bed comforter in this movie? That was like your biggest complaint about the first one. You were like,
right.
why did they
like,
take all the blankets off the bed? This one,
that was so weird.
it was
Yeah,
weird.
this
Like, they were
time
all
they
set to the
did.
side and they were just like hanging out with a sheet. This
Yeah.
time they used the comforter.
They did. I saw them making the bed for the girls.
Mhm.
The twin beds.
Yep.
So it's like, nice job.
So, question for you, because we've
Yeah.
already kind of mentioned that, similar to the first one, there's not a big plot to it. There's a little bit of backstory that you get now that we are 3 movies deep into it. Do you have any parts, like, what part scared you the most? Like, was there something that you were like, oh man, or was there another part that you were just like, nice try? I have a couple thoughts on like jump scares in this movie versus the first one, but I want to see what you were thinking.
You said it earlier, the Bloody Mary scene.
Okay.
Which is crazy because it's literally like a pitch black screen with like a little red dot on it. That's the whole thing. That's it. But they built the suspense. They were like, this is how Bloody Mary works. And like that was a thing when I was a kid.
Yeah,
Like
same.
kids talked about. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and it's ridiculous. Like, it's ridiculous, but
Sure.
all
You
they
still
had to
don't do
do
it.
was just leave the lights off. Yeah, and I love the whole thing about like they did it once and then they're like, okay, good, let's move on. And the little girl was like, no,
No.
you didn't do it long enough. Yeah, and like, what are you gonna say to a 6-year-old or however old she was? Like,
Want some ice cream?
well, I don't think that would have worked. I think she would
Okay.
have been like, no, I don't want the ice cream. We have to do Bloody Mary. Like, kids are stubborn
Sure. And
when
I
they
was
know what
like,
they want.
I ain't doing it. Sorry. I'm a temp babysitter anyway. So we ain't doing it.
I don't think I would have done it. I'd be like, I'm sorry. You could go do it by yourself, but I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Just sitting there in the dark. It was scary
It was.
because
Yeah.
your
So
mind just starts
it
rolling.
starts wondering what's happening. So it's funny that you mentioned that. I didn't bring any notes in on it, but I caught an article that was like, it was like 5 scenes that were in the trailer that weren't in the movie.
Oh, yes. I
And
watched the
one of
trailer
them,
because I read about
right.
this.
And the
Yeah.
trailer, there's a Bloody Mary scene with both the girls, and after they turn the light
Right.
on, nothing happens. And then when they leave, there's like an image. And I remember that from the trailer kind of gripping me a little bit. So I was confused when I saw that. I was like, oh, this is different. And there were a
Yes.
couple other ones. I don't remember what they were. There was at least one other one that I remembered that I was like, that didn't even happen.
Oh,
Which
yeah.
is
So this was apparently a bit of a controversy where
okay.
people watched the trailer and then they went
Mhm.
to see the movie and they were like, there was things in the trailer that weren't in the I think all of the trailer was extra footage that wasn't actually in the
Interesting.
movie. So
Yeah.
some people didn't like that. I think it's an interesting thing that the whole thing is all about found footage. So they're
Sure,
basically
sure.
like the movie you're seeing is just some footage and the trailer is some other footage. Like it's
Yeah.
just all found
Yeah.
so it kind of plays into this created reality of like
Yeah.
saying it's not a movie, it's just someone's home videotapes.
Yeah. Well, and
I
it's
thought it was
funny
kind of
because
clever.
and it's funny because it's been 14 or something years or 13 years, but I mean we see that nowadays with Marvel movies, right? Like I remember when Spider-Man came out and there were a bunch of stuff in the trailer
Oh.
that never made it in the movie, and Marvel's kind of doing that. Like it's very common. They they erase people from trailers and they modify trailers or it's different footage, and so when you get the actual movie, because they're always trying to keep that level of secrecy,
Oh,
obviously
right.
that's not why they were doing it in this movie, but again it's not like super uncommon, for movies to do that. So I just thought it was interesting that
Yeah.
at least the Bloody Mary scene was a little bit different.
Yeah.
I could be feeling differently because it's been a while since we watched the last one, but I remember because The Conjuring was such a big jump scare movie,
Yeah.
and Paranormal Activity was tension. Like the tension was what did it, and at the end, like blah, right at the very end, like sure, demon face
Yep.
hits you and it like chills your spine, and then it goes to black, and you're like,
Yep.
oh God. Okay, well, I'm dead. Full body chills is what we talked about, right? I definitely felt like this movie relied more on jump scares than the original, and they did
Mm.
some pretty good jump scares. There were a couple
Yeah.
cheap ones, but some pretty
When
good
she
jump
jumps out of the
scares.
closet.
When let's be real, that was cheap, but that scared the shit out of me.
It did. Oh, it
It
worked.
like
Oh, yeah.
it was so good because like you're like oh, this would be the perfect time for something to happen, but you
Right.
don't expect someone to come out and with that face like
Yeah.
no matter what you expect, it's not that. And like that happened, and it literally I peed my pants. I didn't really, but yeah, no, but that was the first one. I was like, God, I just had a heart attack. But
Yeah.
anyway, I looked it up, and so that where's the jump.com that we looked at for
Oh,
Conjuring jump
yeah.
scares.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they I don't know how many movies. They probably do it for all the movies, but they listed jump scares in Paranormal Activity 2. I'm not going to read them all,
In
but
2 or in 3?
in three, sorry,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Paranormal Activity 3 in this movie. So like when the photo fell off the wall before the earthquake, okay, yeah, that kind of like startled us. I kind of remember
Yeah,
that.
sure. No big
Uh,
deal. Yeah.
her jumping out of the closet, you just mentioned that.
Yep.
The one that annoyed me because I jumped and I was mad about it was when the camera pans back and the babysitter purposely goes boo into the camera. She's like, "Ha,
Oh, that's
got you,
funny.
Dennis." I jumped and I was mad about
Oh,
it.
do you know what else made me jump? I don't know if this
What?
is on the list or not, but when he's investigating the closet and he sees the symbol and then he turns around and his daughter is standing there.
Oh, yeah. Yep, that got
Is
me
that on the
too.
list?
It is on the list. Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
okay, okay. It wasn't I don't know if they were trying to. Well, yeah, they were definitely trying to
They
jump
were
scare
perfect.
you,
Yeah, of course they were.
but she's just standing there. But I
Yeah.
definitely was like, oh fuck.
You just don't expect anyone to be there, and then she's
Yeah,
there, all like close on him. Yeah. It's like literally like someone snuck up on you, and you're like, "How did you get there without me knowing you got there?"
I am pretty good at doing that, to be honest.
Well, that's because you're a creeper. Couple other ones when her arm was down in the garbage disposal and the light bulb exploded. Obviously, like we're like,
Oh
"Oh God, what's
yes,
gonna happen?" Like it's
don't
already
put your
cringe
hand.
moment. Yeah, yeah. And then it
Yeah,
came from the other house. Yeah. So,
that was
when
interesting that they led you to believe something was going to happen with the
yeah,
garbage disposal. I
like I
was
didn't
like,
really think her hand was gonna, but it just like you're like, ugh, you're like
I
on the edge of
did.
your
I was
seat.
like, she's about to
You
lose
thought
her
she was gonna lose her
hand.
hand or something.
Yeah. I
I
thought it
guess
was
it's
going to get messed up or something.
yeah, yeah. Well, I felt like I don't know. I guess I wasn't really thinking about it too hard, but guess I didn't expect that it to go so far at that point in the movie that like she could like lose her hand or something. But I knew
Yeah.
it was there for the tension. But they still gave you the jump out of it without having to destroy her hand.
Yeah.
Couple other ones. When Katie crawls into the cupboard and the door slams. Okay, that's kind of done. The table and chairs in the
Uh,
kid room when it all gets pushed over. The whole Bloody Mary
sure.
scene, obviously, like there's that. But when everything just gets jerked out of the way, that was a pretty big jump. Obviously, when the furniture falls from the ceiling, you're just like,
Yeah.
oh shit. And then finally, like the last couple are when Katie is thrown at him from the top of the stairs.
Yeah.
No, when Julie, I'm sorry, when the mother Julie is thrown at him, and he goes flying down the stairs. And then really, I think the last kind of big jump scare is when Katie does the turn demon face thing, when the little
Yeah.
girl does that at the end. But all that to say, like, and that's not even all of them on the list. But there was notably more jump scares in this one, where the other one really
Mhm.
just relied on we're standing there, we're watching this footage, we're watching stuff happen, and towards the end, like when Katie, grown up Katie, is dragged down the hallway and she's screaming, and you hear the stomping up the stairs. The original relied so much on it's what you can't see and hearing the noises from the perspective of the one camera. There was
Yeah.
a couple jump scares,
Right.
like when he went outside and she was like right there. There was a couple, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
this one relied a lot more on it, and
Yeah.
so I don't know, just interesting point. Interesting point.
Well, I imagine it's hard. I'm assuming like probably most people who saw Paranormal Activity 3 probably saw Paranormal Activity 1
Right,
and
and
2,
two,
right? So it's got to be hard to like how do you stay within this universe and
mm-hmm.
use the same general techniques but do
Yep,
something different and do something more. And so
right,
that's
and
why I
original.
like
Yep,
and original. Yeah, so I like that this one had like multiple cameras in different rooms so
yep,
you could see like corroborate what you're seeing at different places. I liked the whole fan thing, like that was a really cool effect they
I
found a
agree.
way to implement. So
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean it's hard. How do you and it seems like they were just trying to give more stuff to the audience. Oh, we want to see more effects, we
yeah,
want to see the ponytail being pulled by the hair. And
sure.
but I agree, it's like was it too much, was it too hokey?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
and this kind of ties back to what we were saying, or what we've said a couple times, and I've mentioned this is, sequels are hard, man. They're
Yeah.
hard to do in horror movies, and that's why when we talk about like the Talk to Me sequel, immediately we're like, yes, but we're like, but it can't do the same thing, but it's got to do
Right.
something new. But the first one had
Right.
so much like that it did well. How do you how do you make a movie in the same universe and not repeat the same movie, but make it original and make it just as good, if not better? And
Yeah.
so yeah, they could only do so much. But so like on that note, my question to you is because I know that this probably creeped a lot of people out. And if this did creep you out, send us a note, leave us a review, let us know if you thought this was scary, but Christy talking to the ghost all the time, like, does that creep you out? Because for me, I'm like, okay. I mean, that's kind of standard ghost, little kid talking to Toby, and no,
Yeah.
Toby. Okay, Toby, I'll do it. We're talking about secrets. And I feel that it's creepy, but it didn't do anything for me because I've just kind of seen that a lot, right? And so
Yeah.
what was your
Yeah.
take?
It felt almost a little too staged. Like
Okay.
she's gonna come, she's gonna talk to the demon. Demon's gonna be right off camera, but she's standing right in the camera. Yeah, I felt like they could have. Yeah, it was a little on the nose, I guess you
Yeah.
could say. I
Yeah.
was curious. I thought the little girl who did that scene
Yeah.
did really well.
Yeah.
I know that we learned from the first Paranormal Activity movie that it was like generally scripted. They like planned out scenes, but a lot of the dialogue was like improvised. Like it was guided. They were like,
Right,
"This is what's
right.
happening in this scene," but now go do the scene.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, for a child
Did they
actor,
did they do the same thing for this movie?
I don't know. I don't know for sure. I guess that's a good
Okay.
question, is whether or
Yeah.
not they, improvised a lot of these scenes or not. But I
Yeah.
was wondering, like, she's having to talk to someone who's not there.
Right.
If she just did that, I'd be really impressed.
Right.
I was wondering if they had some way of like, is like somebody standing there that she's like talking to, or are they like helping like respond? And because
Yeah.
if she's just acting that whole conversation to nothing, I'd be really impressed.
That would be pretty impressive. I mean, she was old enough, I think that's feasible. But I'd be curious. Yeah, I wonder like I don't think there's nothing that I saw that was like some big background into it, right? But yeah, I'd
Yeah.
be curious. And I actually hadn't thought about that, but I wonder how much of this was scripted. That kind of leads me into a short list of things that I kind of felt like I didn't dislike this movie for the record. But everything whenever we watch a sequel, it's always comparison to the first one. And the first one I think was so impactful that I made a short list of like things that didn't sell me like the original. And now
Mm.
that I think about it, you talking about was it scripted or not, the first one felt like a real tape. It was just like, oh, this is a tape and it's boring in the daytime and they're cheesy and I don't like Mika. And oh, the camera's left on and the Ouija board thing happens. And it's believable that this one video camera is playing. And it makes sense that they didn't have their dialogue set. Whereas this one, because there was so much happening and you had 4 characters and not just 2, and sometimes 5, with Randy there, it had to have been more scripted. It had to have been. Now, maybe they could have kept it
Yeah.
loose. But anyway, so my short list, right? So one of the big things that it didn't bug me, it made perfect sense, but it was set in 1988, but the footage was clear. So like the first
Ah.
one, you go back and you watch it and it's grainy like a VHS tape. But our
Mm.
1988 VHS footage wasn't grainy. And so for me, I'm like, this doesn't feel like found footage. It feels like they're trying to be found
Oh,
footage.
yeah.
And I think if it would have
Yeah.
been 2011, I might have bought it. But we're going back to when I was 6. That
Yeah,
footage would
yeah. It
not
should
be
have been
crystal
way
clear. And it
weird colors,
should have been grainier than
grainy.
the original.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
a really
that
good point.
and so for all the times that I can just like dive in and suspend disbelief, I struggled with that. I was like, "Man, look at the resolution on this
Yeah.
video camera."
It's like the one time where you're like, why is the resolution's too good?
But yeah, literally, it's like the only time I'm like, "Why is this? I want it to be worse."
I read the way that they filmed it is they used that like handheld camcorder thing, but
Yeah.
they installed like some high definition camera or something inside of
Okay.
it. So,
Oh,
which
that
I
makes
think
sense.
the original Paranormal Activity was filmed on whatever device he was running around, and I think that's what the movie was actually made on. Because,
Right.
like you said, the quality of Paranormal Activity was as you would expect it to be with that technology,
Right. Yep.
wasn't it? Yeah,
Yeah, no, it was. Yeah, 100%. It
yeah,
felt like what would have come out of that type
yeah.
of a camera. Yeah. So a
That
couple
did
other things.
occur to me early in the movie, but then I think I just kind of forgot about it.
Yeah. Well, I was being nitpicky this time around, apparently. So yeah, a couple other things on the list is like, so again, Mika in the first one, he carries the camera around because he's just, being himself. But this dude carried the camera like it was attached to his body, right? So it felt necessary for the movie so that we saw the things, but he was always carrying the camera. He's at grandma's house carrying the camera. Like he's got the camera going when he's talking to Randy in the garage. Like that doesn't make sense. Like why is the camera on
Yeah,
when he's talking to his friend, right? And so I get that they had to capture those scenes to drive the story forward. So it was necessary, but again, it just didn't feel like it was only footage. It felt like
yeah.
found footage plus.
That's
Found foot
yeah,
Found
found
footage
footage
plus.
plus. That is the
Uh,
challenge. I don't know how you tell the story and capture all the right dialogue
yeah,
without, you know, making it weird, I guess. I
yeah,
mean, Paranormal Activity, the first one, it was like they kind of established him as a character who just was running around taping everything, every
yep,
conversation, and she'd be like,
yep,
"Get the camera out of my face." Like, I don't
yep,
but you can't that can't be the premise of every found footage character.
Yeah, it can't be.
So,
And even like grandma's like, "Why do you got the camera?" He's like, "Oh, I just need something to keep my mind straight or something." It's like, okay.
yeah,
Or like,
that's
and
silly.
the little girl Christy's like, "Why are you filming my tea party?" And so like they tried to like remind you that he's just being a weird guy carrying a camera
Right.
around all the time. But anyway, so yeah, those were a couple things. The third thing that I wrote down, we already mentioned, is just like, like her talking to Toby. First of all, why didn't he have that camera facing that closet? Because that seems like a poor stage of the camera. Like, you knew that the closet was a creepy
Mm,
space. Why wasn't the camera looking in the closet? Just saying. But
that's a good point. But I'm glad we didn't have to see the closet. I would not want to have to see the closet.
that's fair. That's fair. Overall, I'm glad I watched it. I would, it was a good.
Good.
I kind of want to watch the second one. There's so many Paranormal Activity movies, and if you follow if you get down the Reddit chain, a lot of people are like, after 3 or 4, just don't watch them. Some people are like, watch them all,
Uh,
but
this one was the highest grossing, wasn't it?
I think it was. I think it was like 8 million or something. I think it definitely brought in quite a bit. And and maybe had we watched it back then and followed the trend of it and watched the second one, we'd be more invested in Christy, because I think in the second one, I think it's mostly about Christy. And so I
Got
think
it.
that
Yeah.
you watch the second one, now you're invested in her and her sister, and then the third one kind of gives you that background of the story of what their childhood was like. One day we'll
Got
get
it.
to
Okay.
watching them all, but we have way too many movies to watch before then.
Yeah. Seriously. So there's Paranormal Activity, came out in 2009. And the
Right.
Paranormal Activity 2, 3, and 4. So we just watched 3.
Mhm.
Those came out in 2010, 11, and 12.
That's
And
quick.
then,
That's quick.
yeah, right. They just like churned them out, which was smart.
Yeah.
Paranormal Activity, the marked ones, came out in 2014.
Okay.
Paranormal Activity, The Ghost Dimension came out in 2015.
Mhm.
And then Paranormal Activity, Next of Kin came out in 2021.
21, that's pretty recent. I
Yeah.
wonder if it was any good. So I think you hinted at this earlier. You might have said it before we started recording, but when you got to the end, I think you and I agree. It was just kind of like, oh, okay. Like, there were some creepy
Yeah.
parts. She was thrown at him. Okay, what the hell? He's looking over. He's hiding with Christy. There's stuff going on. He sees Katie crying. She does the demon face. He gets thrown back. And then he gets contorted. And the grandma takes him upstairs.
Yeah.
And
I
like,
think like it entered into like a different type of scary movie once we
yeah.
were at grandma's house. I think seeing the other humans
Mhm.
actually I was like, oh, that's really creepy. Don't
Sure.
love those,
Sure.
coven of witches coming at us.
Yeah.
But again, I think sometimes when you can see something and you can assign your fear to something, it kind
Yeah.
of like makes it less scary
Yeah. It's
in
kind
a
of like the
way.
ritual. Like the ritual was, well, actually,
Right.
it's actually really funny because ritual felt a lot like Blair Witch. The whole time they're in the woods, they're with the entity they don't know. And then now you're surrounded by a bunch of people and they're
Right.
part of the problem and they're there with
Right.
the entity. And it just shifts to like not,
Yes.
it tones down the fear. And
Yeah.
I feel like by giving it a back,
Slightly. Like
slightly,
it's still
sure.
scary. It's still like, oh God. Like it was a little bit, I was like, oh shit, grandma's been part of this the whole time. She's the
Yeah.
one, I don't know,
Yeah.
pulling the strings here. Like that's still a little bit freaky, but
Yeah.
it took away a little bit from the fear, I think.
Yeah. For me, it went from tension and fear to just like eerie, spooky story.
Yeah.
And honestly, like I kind of felt like adding the whole background of it, like, oh, it's all tied to the grandma, and that's like, and then this entity is gonna follow Katie for the rest of her life or something. For me, just kind of took away from it because now you know what it is. Like you watch the first movie,
Right.
you don't know what's doing this. You
No
just know that
information.
shit's evil, and you know at
Mm-hmm.
the end it wins. And like
Exactly.
you were like you're left with your imagination, right? To just say
Right.
that's the terror, right? And I think that by giving it like, okay, there's this coven and there's these witches. Okay, well, we see covens of witches a lot. Cool. And then the grandma's in on it. Okay, well, that's kind of weird. Okay, cool. You know what I mean? And so yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I thought like wasn't a bad thing. But as far as I guess that's my number one difference between the first one and this one, which is why this one won't be an 11 for me, is the way that the last one ended, the way they built the tension throughout, and then the way it ended, especially with her face at the end, like the chills through my body that happened, that left me when the screen went black, sitting there like slightly paralyzed for a moment, like, oh shit, like that got me. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm not okay for a second. And I never got there with this movie, and it definitely didn't. I didn't feel anything afterwards. It kind of just held
That's
on,
fair.
you know.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I didn't get the full body chills that we got from Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
That's definitely true.
Yeah. I got foot chills, but that's because it was cold and I wasn't wearing socks.
Yeah, my hands were cold. I needed some mittens. No, just kidding. So should we rate it?
Yeah. So I've been doing pretty good about rating it. I wrote down some stuff, but what do you think? And then what do you think? I mean, you kind of already know maybe where
Ooh.
I'm at, but
What do I think you gave it? That's
yeah,
tough. I wonder if we're about on the same page here because I still thought it was pretty scary.
yeah,
It didn't break the meter at an 11. And for
right,
me, I'm not quite sure it was a shining 10,
sure,
but just just beneath that is where I felt. It
okay,
definitely, induced the physiological response of the anticipation of what was
sure,
coming. So for
sure.
me, it was pretty scary. Are you in the same boat?
um, I think we're on the same river.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay, close but not. So
yeah, close.
you're probably
Well,
giving it like a 7 or something.
so do you want me to just tell you what I gave it?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know how I am a little crazy, and I've kind of been breaking my ratings into two different parts. Like for what is it, Hereditary? I was like, it's a this for the first 30 and the last 30, but it's
Oh,
like this in the
yeah.
middle. Yeah, I did it again with this one. So at first, I kind of went back and forth. But what I have here is that I gave it an 8 for jumps, but a 6
Okay.
for tension.
Okay.
And so
Alright.
like the jumps and like you just kept coming at me, and the tension didn't hold me quite the same. And so I really only felt like a 6. I also watched it during the day.
Oh,
I had my
Chris, what are
head.
you doing?
Okay, you know my schedule. I don't know when I was gonna watch it. We got guests in
Yeah,
town, but I turned the
that's
blinds
fair.
down,
That's
and
fair.
I did have my headphones in, right? So like it was
Yeah, and
noise
that
canceling
adds a lot.
headphones,
Yeah.
but I watched Paranormal Activity in the pitch black, and so
Mm.
maybe that's part of it, right? Maybe there's a part of it that's like, well, maybe I should have, my self scare meter was a little low.
I was watching it at nighttime with the lights off and the windows open with the breeze coming through.
With
And
the
I was
breeze.
like laying on this. Yeah. I was laying on the sofa, had my little blanket, and I was laying with my arms like over my head, like behind my head, like hanging off the back of the sofa. And
Yeah.
there was a point in the movie when like things were happening and, demons were around that
Yeah.
I just was like, I think I would feel more comfortable. I want my hands on my lap. I don't want my
You don't want
extremities
something
out
to
of my
touch
field
your
of view
hand.
where something's gonna brush by and just like touch. Like I just started imagining that, like my
Yep.
hand, something coming into contact with my hands, and I was like, I'm just gonna put these back in my lap where they belong.
That's funny.
So the environment definitely like added to the
Yeah.
effect of the movie for sure.
Yeah. I really wish I would have been hiding behind your couch and like been able to like touch your hand when they were behind your head. Uh yeah, no, I
God, I
get
would have
it. So
lost
I
it.
guess so what do you rate it then? So are you like an
I was
8 for
thinking
the
a
whole
9.
thing? Like
I
a
was
9?
thinking a 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's time to tell the audience what's going on for the next episode, which is coming to a theater near you. I'm just kidding. So Friday night, friends, Sam and I are taking a bit of a break after episode 13. We're going to do our own little self-care, some self-scare, and give you guys a chance to catch up on some of the old stuff. We ended season 1 at episode 13, so we're 13 episodes into season 2. But before we break, maybe we'll talk a little bit about what we thought about the movies this season. Like what, you have any favorites, Sam? What are your thoughts? What,
Oh,
looking
I
back,
definitely have some favorites.
that's a long list. That's a long list.
Yeah. But that's it. Those are my favorites.
Here are my favorites.
No, I was gonna make a statement and I was like checking myself before I made it. But I think for sure my favorite, and this might be my favorite of any of the movies we've done,
Oh, doubt it. I don't know what you're
was
about to say.
Talk to Me.
Okay.
Talk to me. It
Interesting.
just was so, like, intense and, like, thrilling and, like, different, and the energy, and it was just, like, youthful, and, like, the music,
Yeah.
and just I mean, it was just, like, a wild ride, and it was
Yeah.
fucking scary, but it was, like, excitingly
Yeah.
scary. I don't know. Talk
I
to Me was good.
I think you're right. I think, well, I mean, it's your personal opinion, so of course you're right to believe whatever you want. But no, I think I agree. I think my mom, as she was catching up, she's gonna be watching at the time of recording this, she's gonna be watching Talk to Me any day now. And I was just telling her how good it is without spoiling it. But I think I agree. Like, Talk to Me was the funnest one we've done in these, in our second 13 episodes in, season two. And like you said, it just we talked about it, hit the whole Stephen King scale: horror, terror, gross out, visceral, like edge of your seat, gut feelings, made you feel ill. I'm trying to predict what's going to happen. They change it up a little bit. And then you find out, that the creators are these guys that started on YouTube just making, little videos, and then A24 is like, "Hey, let's take your movie and make it a big one."
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that that's my number one for sure this season, closely followed by Horns.
No, I know you
No,
did not like Horns.
no. Oh, do you
Uh,
remember? Okay, I'm hoping everyone listening actually listened to the whole season. But man, we started out, it was a roller coaster. We started out with Nope, and we were like, "Yep, great movie."
I loved Nope. Yeah, Nope
Loved
was really
Nope.
good.
It was another Jordan Peele movie. We started off strong. Then we jumped into Horns because we went fantastical horror, and we were both just like, "What in the
Bah.
hell? What is happening here?" I've since talked to a handful of people, and they're all just like, "What the hell's going on with that movie? That movie was horrible." Like, even one of my friends who's an avid listener of the show, she said, she was like, "You guys were too nice. That movie was horrible." And I was like, "I don't even think
Yeah.
we were nice about it, honestly." Uh, but yeah, then we went to The Exorcist, which was a nice classic. It was great. And then jumped into Exorcist Believer, that hit the wall of the trying to be a sequel and trying to do too much. And so we were just kind of like up and down. But then we finally hit our stride. The Menu, we had some
Yeah.
s'mores.
I
It was,
liked the menu. Quiet Place. I liked Quiet Place, and there's a new Quiet
yeah,
Place coming out this year.
I'm really
Day
excited.
one or whatever.
Yeah, which means we got to watch the second one so we can watch the third one.
Oh, right, right, true.
Yeah, and maybe we'll do that as the movie's approaching. But yeah, Talk to Me was great. What else? What was I mean, Horns was probably your least favorite.
Yeah, Horns I didn't love it. I had some, I think I was a little skeptical about some elements from Doctor Sleep. Nosferatu's.
Yeah,
It's just that's kind of a challenging one to compare because
yeah.
I mean, it's
It's
a
like going
hundred
to a
years old.
museum. Just get ready to go to a
Yeah,
museum. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I think I enjoyed The Ritual more than you did, maybe.
Yeah, I didn't dislike it. I liked it better until they got to the end, with the people around. I
Yeah,
liked
yeah,
it felt, isolation, horror in the woods, and them trying to navigate each other's personalities, and they're slowly losing their mind. And that's that in combination with this unseen being was what brought the fear. But then, I mean, it was good. I'm glad we watched it overall. Choose your friends wisely before you go backpacking.
yeah. Seriously,
Um, but yeah,
that one. Hereditary, I think, was another one that I really liked. Hereditary, Talk to Me, A Quiet Place, and Nope, I think were
yeah,
my like go to. These were really well done movies
yeah.
that I would recommend to people, even if you don't like scary movies and they're not your
Mhm.
thing. Those four were movies that were like well made
Yep.
and worth the time to explore.
Yeah, I agree. But go watch them all and then listen to all the episodes. If you haven't, I don't know why you're starting with this episode first, but whatever.
Some people love Paranormal Activity.
That's true. That's true. We're gonna have to do two eventually, but we'll get there. So, Friday Night Friends, what did you think about the 13 episodes this season? Leave us a rating on Spotify, on Apple, and let us know what was your favorite movie in season 2? What was your favorite movie in season 1? What movie didn't we watch that you really want to see us do? If you really want to give us some movie ideas, then email us at scarymoviefrightnightpod@gmail.com and use the subject line Scary Movie, and then submit movies that are must-see movies that Sam and I need to break down. We're constantly looking for input. There's a million movies out there, and honestly, I'm doing most of choosing. So, help me out, make a choice for us. After you've done all that, we're taking a break, so take a break for yourself. Get some self-scare, have a toast to the ghosts, and Sam and I will see you soon.
See you next time, everybody.
Scary movie. Fright night. Make me a sandwich. And I'll take a bite. And Chris and Sam, they're gonna watch some Fear, and then they're gonna die.
Wait, what?
Come with us and watch Scary Movie Fright Night.
I don't like this song.